And we are the Nonprofits. I'm Denis Loubet, along with Jamie Boone and the incomparable Matt Dillahunty, and we're coming to you live from the Free Thought Library in Austin, Texas, on the 1st of August, 2018. I wanted to do an intro about the Religious Liberty Task Force, but any attempt at satire I tried just turned into veiled and not-so-veiled threats aimed at ourselves and others. This show is sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization for the promotion of positive atheism and the separation of church and state, which seems to be under attack from several directions. If you want to learn more about the ACA, you can call their voicemail at 512-220-6561 or visit their website at www.atheist-community.org. The Nonprofits broadcasts live every first and third Wednesday of each month from 7:30 to 9 Central Time. You can join the Nonprofits chat room by following the directions at www.nonprofitsradio.com and help us figure out why parody is now indistinguishable from mainstream dialogue. So sit back and enjoy the show while you still can.
Well, that was ominous. The ending of that. I was going to say Poe's Law realized in our government.
Yeah. We now have a Religious Liberty Task Force.
Yes, the Religious
Something we
Liberty
always
Destruction.
needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to get caught up building the Space Force or whatever, but...
The Religious Liberty Task Force is the Space Force.
Force.
They're going to be monitoring us from
from
orbit.
heaven.
Yeah. To get closer to God.
To get closer to God.
We got to pray for them from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Yeah. Oh, actually, is there a distance effect on prayer? Just like hypothetically, so like if you're in orbit, you can pray down on more people. Like, is there an atmospheric distortion from your prayer?
Pray down to them, look down at them. Same thing.
I'm going to avoid my tendency to be pedantic and point out that, no, that would not be avoiding it if I said it. Because you're praying to God who's everywhere, so there's no...
Right.
Well, I was wondering if you can, like, pray
Ubiquitous.
at a person. Or just, like, are prayers like cell phone signals where you are calling someone, but it goes to the cell phone tower. So God is the cell phone tower? Like
I think the
intercessory prayer.
It could be, but the big thing is, like, for prayer, there's a lot of laying on of hands. And so if you're in space, it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
It's like, you've gotten too far from the target.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
The laying on of hands is what leads me to the, like, there must be some proximity effect. I don't know.
Apparently, laying on of hands works over a monitor.
Does it?
Yeah.
Like laying
You've got
hands
preachers
on
who
a
tell you to go up to the television and put your hand on the television.
Put your hand on the screen.
Yep, put your hand on the screen and
I have not watched
be
it.
healed. Yeah,
I will,
they do that.
Feel God's holy grace flowing through you. Just reach out right now. Touch my hand. We need $20 from everybody who touches a finger.
And if
And if
you
you
want
pull
to
my
support
finger,
the show,
there
you
you go.
can at our Patreon, which is making a weird noise right now. But the Patreon So are we live? Do we know?
We're waiting.
All right.
In the meantime, how the hell are you guys?
I'm good. That was
Fine.
I'm assuming somebody's actually, just in case somebody's listening to this, I'm Matt, and I'm here today.
Yeah.
And we were trying to figure out when the last time was I did an episode of Nonprofits, and it might actually be like a decade.
Oh, we're live?
Yes, that's what he said.
Okay.
Cool.
So
Yeah, we
you're
can't
Matt,
see it in here.
and
But
you are here, and you haven't been on the Nonprofits since
I guess that would be
I don't know. We were trying to
2008.
figure that out. 2008.
well, no, I don't know if it'd been quite that long because Beth and I got married in 2011, and we were still in the apartment at that time. And I think I was still doing
you're
Nonprofits
still doing
until
Nonprofits,
2010. I haven't done it since I moved out of that apartment, which would be 2011. So it's been at least 7 years.
Yeah.
But actually, that's probably a lie too, because some astute listener out there will say, no, you've done it one time in this building when you came in and sat with Jeff and somebody. So there was like one other guest show.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Cool.
Some listener will go back and count all of the times that you've been on any of our shows.
Suffice to say, a sighting of Matt Dillahunty on the nonprofits is a rare thing.
These days, yeah.
Nice to say.
I still remember, I was talking earlier because I loved the fact that, you know, we used to do it from my apartment. And then as, you know, Jeff had to leave for a while, Russell had to leave for a while. And eventually it was just me and Dennis. And I was like, some of those were some of my favorites because
I know.
Not as many voices. And it was like, we'd get to a point where it's like, I really don't have anything else to say about it. Cool, then we'll just move on.
We're done. Let's.
So what you're saying is your ideal third wheel is someone that isn't there and doesn't talk a lot. I'll see what I can do. Don't expect
You're
that.
a sharp kid, Jamie.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if you want to support us on Patreon, it's pays me time.
They say we're young and we don't know.
Okay.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Jesus doesn't want us.
All right.
We are
All
live.
right.
Cool.
And we are back.
We are the expert podcasters.
Yes.
And
A word from our sponsor. No.
Yeah.
I have to say that despite the fact that there were technical glitches at the start of this, which were completely unexpected, the shit these guys have done to
Yeah. It is amazing.
This is a light year and a half from me and Dennis sitting in my bedroom, basically.
And no one's got their back to the camera right now, and we're
That's
talking into
true.
really professional quality microphones. And
Yes.
it's
in
like,
a
wow.
handcrafted base. This
Yes.
box, by the way, that lets us, not cough loudly into our listeners' ears is hand constructed by our sound engineer, Vern. And all of this wiring... Lovingly crafted. You don't see a whole mess of wires going every which way because Vern is excellent. I mean, they always say, oh, if you notice the tech people, it means they're not doing their job as well. When they're doing their job, you don't even notice they're there, which is a shame because they do their job very, very well.
We have the best tech folks around.
Yeah, we lost. I think you came in later in the day we lost power in the building. Except all of our tech gear and all of the lights in here and all the things we would need to broadcast still had power because they've installed a backup for that and they got generators and everything in here. And we went on the air on time. It was like 90 minutes out and we lost all power in the building. It was amazing. So we were speculating about how long it had been since you were here, 7 years or something.
Nobody in the chat has already coughed up that information. You guys have failed. Once upon a time, the chat would have had the answer to this just like that. It's like Matt did the episode, 4 years ago on April 4th.
Well, I haven't checked the live chat, actually. I'm falling down. But, so I think, unless we have something else, I think usually we get some mail.
We can do mail or a news story. All right. Mail. Well, here's an obvious one from Adrian. Sorry I didn't get back to you sooner and answer your question. Oh, wait. No, it's where is Russell? Russell is off
gallivanting
around. Yeah.
Russell is wherever Russell wants to.
Jeff is off at his job.
Jeff's on a job, Russell's on hiatus.
That's right. So
it happens.
It's me bringing up the traditional nonprofits, and now Matt's here to.
I am the backup crew.
Backup original.
We have scraped the bottom of the barrel, and I am here.
No, it's like in the same way that they go retro for fashion and style. It's retro nonprofits.
I'm just waiting because I know there's somebody who stopped listening to the Atheist Experience because of me, but kept listening to nonprofits because I wasn't on it, and that's the person that's going to email this week and be like, "Why the fuck did you do that?"
Well, it's a 1 week only, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could only get him for 1 week, but I mean that's where Russell is, and probably where he's going. I don't know.
We have more mail.
Do we have more mail, or do you want to go to a story?
Go to a story.
All right, Matt. I think you came with the news that presumably is what everyone is talking about this week in particular, because our benevolent theocratic government has decided to do something new and exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Jeff Sessions, our wonderful Attorney General, has announced a religious liberty task force. And I've gotten this is the coverage from NBC. So, it's part of the biased liberal media.
MSM, definitely.
Yeah, this is the secular stuff they're just trying to shut down. But civil rights groups and LGBTQ advocates on Tuesday tore into the Department of Justice's newly formed Religious Liberty Task Force, slamming the move as a discriminatory affront to civil liberties masquerading as protections for people of faith. This task force agenda isn't consistent with religious freedom. Religious freedom protects our right to our beliefs and not a right to discriminate or harm others, Louise Melling, Deputy Legal Director for the American Civil Liberties Union, said. Jeff Sessions' Department of Justice is again turning understanding of religious freedom on its head. This started with, basically kind of like Trump's pronouncement a while ago that he was going to toss out the Johnson Amendment, essentially, and people lost their minds. And I actually corrected some secular panic, chicken littles, saying what his pronouncement actually did does not throw out the Johnson Amendment, but it may be a stepping stone to that sort of thing. The Johnson Amendment, by the way, is the thing that keeps churches from being political. You can't, it's the same reason nonprofits or the Atheist Community of Austin is a 501c3, can't endorse political candidates, but we can always talk about positions. And what we found was happening quite often is there are churches all over the place that just say, screw that. We're going to go ahead and tell you who to vote for. Sometimes we're going to wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and sometimes we're just going to do it. The problem is that these are tax-exempt organizations, and in many cases they operate charities that actually get tax money. And we've run into countless, examples of discriminatory hiring practices. You go to Ken Ham's Ark Encounter and Creation Museum, and you have to sign a thing of faith. They got all kinds of tax deals from the government. So this entanglement, we had kind of a fuzzy wall. We should have a solid wall of separation between religion and government, but we had a fuzzy wall. And there were people who complained about the fuzzy wall because it was basically religious privilege was abusing these things. And then there were suggestions of, okay, you could let them do that, but let's make them pay taxes and open their books to the public. And I, for one, am in favor of that. Let the preacher tell every one of those jackasses how to vote, but we're going to tax them, and they have to open their books to the public because then people can see where the money goes.
Right.
Yeah.
But right now, they want to have their cake and eat it too. And right now, they have the Trump administration and Jeff Sessions and Mike Pence all backing them up. I don't know what the extent of this Religious Liberty Task Force is. It sounded both ominous and also just like posturing. We're tossing red meat to our fan base. Somebody tweeted at me today. It was like, "Oh, are you guys going to sue?" Because, and I'm sure there will be plenty of organizations that are suing, not just secular ones, but LGBTQ orgs.
Right. ACLU.
But the guy was like, "Oh, I hope you guys will address this and deal with it because this law is about putting secular-minded folks like us in jail." And I was like, "No, no.
Wait, hang on.
How would it do that?
If there's one thing I continually caution people about, it is hyperbole. If you've got a good cause and you're on the right side of the issue, don't mess it up. By
overstating
it. They're coming to take away all your children. No. What they're doing is messing around with the first batch of laws and perverting what religious freedom is and actually engaging in religious privilege. Because Jeff Sessions isn't looking at religious freedom for Muslims or Hindus or Buddhists or anybody else. This is a nearly sectarian, nearly Protestant Christian favoritism that's going on. Catholics will get some of it too. Maybe some Jews so they can say they're Judeo-Christian, which isn't a thing. It's not a thing. Judeo-Christian's not a thing. Ask the Jews.
I saw a great cartoon that had Jeff Sessions with a wheelbarrow filled with bricks, wheeling it over to Trump and his wall. And he's saying, "You need some bricks." And behind him, you see the wall between church and state.
I love that.
Half demolished.
I saw another one where there was a guy hanging on a wall, and these two scarlet-robed characters are standing there saying, "Nobody expects the Religious Freedom Task Force."
Yeah, I was going to say the Catholics will get some of it because on their agenda item is, destroy any ability for anyone to get abortions. So I guess that counts as an
One of the bigger
overlapping
problems
interest.
with Catholics is the adoption services because they really don't want gays and lesbians to adopt kids.
Yeah.
And they've been trying to prevent it on the grounds of religious freedom, and the government would rightly say, no, you don't get to do that.
Yeah.
You get to exercise your religious freedom however you want, but when you start overriding people's rights to adopt, not only, and it's sucky because they're hurting kids as well. There are kids in need of families and families in need of kids, and the Catholic Church and others are saying, we're not going to let you do that. Well, okay, then we're not going to let you run adoption services. Adoption services aren't a religious thing, shouldn't be a religious thing.
Right.
This is one of those things where we just kind of let churches do things because they already had this privileged status. And if the government's action is going to be to try to expand that religious privilege, then we need to fucking shut that down and just say, okay, you're a church, be a church. You don't get to adopt kids. You don't get to control people's lives based on your religious ideology.
And are we going to have to extract, like, the church from hospitals?
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they already have I have friends who work at hospitals and as counselors and other things, and there have been occasions, especially in like Catholic churches, where if a woman has a miscarriage, they have to pay for 2 funerals. One for the fetus, and then one for the other birth matter that comes out afterwards.
Wait.
If you don't deliver, if you don't process all at the same time, sometimes you have a miscarriage, and then sometime after that, the placental matter will come out as well. And
those are 2 separate funerals.
Yes, because that's you already had a funeral for the fetus, and then the other one is birth matter.
Well, is that how do they not have one?
How does birth matter become a human being?
Jesus,
mystery, magic. But it's not so much that.
Oh, good grief! Do I have to bury my fingernail clippings? Come on!
We should lobby for that. The Church of Fingernail Clipping.
Oh God!
It's not so much that they have to pay for 2 funerals. That's not the hard thing.
Right.
It's
the hard thing is that you've got a mother.
Yeah, you have to
who
put them
lost a
through
kid,
that.
Yeah.
And now you're putting her through shit twice.
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, God hates women, so
yeah.
Well, that was fun. One of the details that I heard going through is that there's a lot of discretion when it comes to prosecutors and law enforcement at basically at every level is who do you arrest, who do you charge. And so part of the guidelines laid out for the executive branch is to not threaten any religious organization that lobbied for a candidate in the election is one of the points of guidelines that they're passing through the government, which I think is blatantly self-serving.
Yeah.
Yeah. This for all the people saying they're doing away with the Johnson Amendment when they tried to, this is the real first step towards that. Basically saying it's kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And there is, and I always try to be fair, like weed isn't legal in Austin.
Yeah.
But if you're walking down 6th Street smoking a joint, you might get it's unlikely you're going to get arrested.
Yeah.
Right.
There's some discretion there. It might be, hey, put that out or share it, I guess some of the cops might say. And so it's nice when there's discretion on laws that are sensible, that expand freedom. Mm-hmm. This is discretion that ultimately leads to an abuse of a system that benefits shady politicians, it benefits churches, and it does not benefit citizens at all.
No.
And I would say it doesn't even necessarily benefit churches, right? Like I always think about this the way I thought about, or tried to think about it the way I thought about religion when I was religious. And in my mind, I separated that from government. And I was very passionate about government, which is probably where the people that have preferred me to be indoctrinated and still a Christian today went wrong. Because that passion hasn't faded at all. But that's not ever what I thought churches were for at all. And I feel somewhat supported by this Baptist minister that wrote, I think it's an op-ed for NBC News as well, just saying like, this is ridiculous. This isn't what freedom means. You're supposed to persuade people to believe what you believe instead of trying to force them to believe it with a government. And I think, I mean, in a way, particularly because I'm the president of an atheist organization, I guess it's good that this entirely destroys whatever credibility that churches tried to maintain as like organizations that were supposed to be educational and teach people or persuade people, that they're now aimed at getting the police to teach you in that way. I don't know.
It may be the case, though. I would want to see the text where they're saying, hey, let's not go after people who were lobbying in the last election, because they'll use that to say that lobbying in the next one's okay. The problem is the Atheist Community of Austin is a 501c3 educational organization, not a religious organization.
Right.
And so we would still be prohibited from doing that, which I'm fine with. I don't feel any desire to tell people how to vote from the standpoint of an organization.
Right.
As an individual, though, I will absolutely give you my opinion.
Not right now.
But not right now.
Oh my God.
And but it may be the case that we need other 501c3 non-religious organizations to push back on this, to say, okay, if you want to do this, you got to do it for all.
Right.
And so then all of a sudden, we could come on and
Floodgates are open.
Say,
I mean, really,
vote for Trump or don't vote for Trump or whatever we wanted to say.
Right.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's like has the Satanic Temple has to be all over this.
Yes.
Right? Like
The Satanic Temple is the secular community's incredibly weird best friend.
Yes, it is.
yeah.
It's like there's this. It's like the uncle that you really don't want to invite to the party, but he always shows up with the best booze and stuff. So you like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's always the one that turns it around on him. It's like, let's have theology classes. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
You can teach about the devil. Wait. No, we didn't mean that.
Satan loves me, this I know.
The Satanic Children's Coloring Book tells me so.
There was a Wiccan group that got ticked off at some city council that wanted to prohibit them from.
Oh,
you have that story?
Yeah, I saw that somewhere. Hang on. It's hang on. It's right after we have
Right on the tip of your tongue.
right on the tip of my scrolling towards it. Let's see.
Odds are good that if I just go to Hemant Mehta's Friendly Atheist website, I will find all the news articles just like I used to.
Nah.
Well, he's very good at collecting them, but after that, I do my best to go to the source as well, which I do with. Well, here. Oh no, here it is. It's yeah, I've got it.
Okay, go.
All right. Let's see. Elected officials in Brown County, Wisconsin, have a long habit of opening their meetings with Christian prayers. Even in 2012, the Freedom from Religion Foundation was telling the county board to stop invocations that included mentions of Jesus and ended with, "In Jesus' precious name, amen."
Yeah, that's a little sectarian.
Precious. Wow.
Yeah, it's precious. That was before the Supreme Court ruled that those kinds of prayers were legal, but even now, they would be illegal if they're the only prayers ever offered. And that's exactly what's going on. The prayers are no longer as explicit, but they're still undoubtedly Christian. Supervisor Patrick Evans thinks he has a way to resolve the controversy, though let the voters decide, which is not at all how that works. On Monday night, the Catholic official proposed putting Christian invocations to a vote this November, which, again, is not... We have a constitution.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Evans, on Monday, submitted his proposal to the board office, the first step in having the supervisors discuss the proposal. The measure would get its first public airing next week, when the executive committee would discuss it. The proposed wording, quote, should the Brown County Board of Supervisors continue to open their monthly board meeting with a Christian-style prayer invocation. End quote. Wow. It's Christian-style hyphenated and then prayer in parentheses invocation. That's weird. We all knew what you meant when you said Christian-style.
It gets worse, though.
Evans, who's running to become mayor of Green Bay, is apparently unfamiliar with how laws work. Sorry. That I would agree. The people don't get to vote on whether or not they want to follow the rules. Even a unanimous vote wouldn't make Christians' prayers at government meetings legal,
That's
just
right.
as high school seniors don't get to choose whether they want formal prayers at graduation.
We're a constitutional democracy, not mob rule.
Yes.
Or if we're going to hand out Molly to everyone when they get to the door. Let's vote on that, high
Yes.
schoolers.
Yeah, they'll be opposed to democracy real fast. How does Evans not know this? And then, just to make everything worse, Evans kept talking. He was voicing his oppositions to colleagues' proposal to open up the invocations to people who aren't Christians, which would make everything legal. That is true. That's the statement is you have to provide access, right? As long as you allow invocations, which actually happens a lot because people want to offer non-religious invocations or humanist invocations, and then everyone still flips their lid. It's ridiculous. He was who aren't Christians. His argument was that he didn't want non-Christians offering prayers at meetings. Somehow he made that awful statement even worse. Quote, "There are some supervisors that want to open it up to anybody who comes in. Somebody wants to pray to trees, and then they want to come in and pray. If they're Wiccan, they pray to the devil. They want them to come in as well. So I support where we have it now, having it Christian-based," said Evans.
So the monumental ignorance of the general public is always a source of amusement and concern for me. Because first of all, if you have the Wiccans come in, they're not going to pray to the devil. They're more likely to pray to trees. You'd have been closer with that. But the Wiccans were really pissed that he represented them as praying to the devil.
Yeah.
So not only does he want to exclude them, he wants to misrepresent them in order to exclude them. And my thing is, I'm glad the Wiccans are pissed and kind of taking them to task. But I think anybody who wants to pray to the devil should also be pissed off because, hey, those Wiccans aren't devil worshippers. I am. And I want to pray at your city council thing too.
Damn it.
So it's I don't know. People don't. It's not surprising to me that people don't know how the law works, how the Constitution works. It's
How fairness works. Yeah.
Hey, let's vote on this. Okay, yeah,
Let's vote.
you can vote all you want, but if you're voting to, let's have the entire U.S. population vote as to whether or not I should be Donald Trump's slave.
Right.
Even if they all vote yes, that does not happen.
Yeah. Yet.
Although it might.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Because we can amend the Constitution that would allow me to be a slave.
I mean, do they really need to amend the Constitution if they get a second activist judge on the court? God, I hate Gorsuch. Yeah, but the Lady Liberty League is the group that brought up the objection. They're a group that supports civil rights and religious freedom for Wiccans and pagans. But yeah, no, it's they objected to them worshiping the devil. We suggest that Mr. Evans and any others who are misinformed become better educated and be more understanding about various world religions and the need to provide equal accommodation to all and by all in the public sector. In addition, it would be useful for any similarly minded government representatives to become better versed in the separation of church and state within our country. But yeah, I mean,
for years, people would write in or email or ask, hey, would you want atheism to be a religion or would you want an atheist church? No. And my answer has always been the same. It's not a religion. I don't want it as a church. Am I fine with the idea of secular things that are like church? Oasis, Sunday Assembly thing? Sure, yeah.
Sure.
If that's for
yourself
you.
out.
However, it's getting to the point, and we had it years ago, probably 13, 14 years ago, the ACA actually had discussion about whether or not we wanted to try to apply as a 501c3 religious organization or educational. And it was nearly unanimous that we were going educational.
yeah.
Because one of the things is, while it's an unfair playing ground to be standing in opposition to religious organizations that have privileges you don't, we wanted to, be ethical and make sure that we were doing this right.
Right.
I think every single day I want to find a proper secular religious church that I would be comfortable belonging to just so that we can do nothing but file lawsuits on behalf of the secular religious organizations and make sure that those things are written in such a way that those protections apply to the rest of the 501c3 classes. Because either we have to take away the tax-exempt status from religion so that everybody can have, or we have to open up the privileges to everybody. Now, I would rather take away their tax-exempt status because they've been, hoarding money and but
abusing it for forever. Yeah.
But I might not be the majority here.
I don't know. That's a very good question. I go back and forth on this a little bit. I'm, haven't been as frustrated for as long about this, so maybe that's why I'm more patient. I'm sort of along the lines of, okay, they can operate as a nonprofit. There's certainly some privileges that I think no organization should have, period, which is to not have to open your books at all. I don't care what your legal status is. That's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't know. If it's providing community services, even if that's a community
But that's the thing.
service.
Let's say you run a church. Now, the ostensibly the reason that churches get these privileged things is because they provide communities with services. And it is true that throughout the history of the United States in particular, churches provided massive services. They were the schoolhouse. They provided the meeting places. They provided places to vote. They they provided buildings, because if you're only there on Sunday morning, that means the rest of the time there's a building that people can use.
Yeah.
And so certainly there were services there. Churches eventually build up to run hospitals and universities and these other things that are clearly a benefit. I'm not denying at all that happened.
Oh.
But let's pick two churches. Let's pick Church A, which has its Sunday services and then does a bunch of stuff for the community in addition that don't involve the religious aspects. Let's say they open up their doors, they allow childcare during the day for the week, and it's still a paid service. People are paying to use, but they're providing the facilities. And then here's this other church, and it does none of those things. It still gets all the same benefits as the church that's doing good.
Right.
Now, if we had to open the books, we would see, and everybody would see, that when I put money in the offering plate, 60% of the money that I'm putting in the offering plate goes to feed the homeless or maintain the facilities for childcare and everything. And if we look at the other church, 0% of what I put in the offering plate goes there.
Yeah.
Now, if the books were open like that, I think it would be more for people to see, but you would no longer need the protections, because then you could say, this chunk of our business is religious and is not tax exempt. This chunk of our business is providing public services and is tax exempt. We can show you what we're doing. We are demonstrating that we are doing the thing that earns us the tax exempt status.
Yeah.
And now everything's fair again. And you probably end up with better churches.
Probably, yeah.
Maybe,
Because the ones that are, the send me $25 today or Jesus is going to strike me dead, those are the ones that are going to go under when hopefully people realize that they're doing nothing for the public. They're just building another mansion for Joel Osteen or whoever, or buying somebody another $90 million jet.
Yeah.
Now, here's a question.
Creflo Dollar.
Is there a Christian denomination whose prayer would be just as outrageous to these people who want the Christian-style prayer at the beginning of their session?
Yeah, but they wouldn't consider him Christian. They would exclude him.
No, they would exclude. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it said he's a Catholic official, so presumably anyone that would say that the Pope is the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
So a lot of those King James only old school Baptists that think Catholics are Mary and saint worshiping heathens, they might say a prayer that he would not enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's all of that. Actually, this I want to bring up, the Westboro Baptist Church, because people particularly of the religious variety or those that aren't informed or in the movement.
It's weird. Haven't heard a lot about them recently.
Well, they're doing the same old shit.
I'm sure they're doing the same old shit.
We have the Trump administration. We don't need.
But they're being overshadowed by something much bigger.
Yes, the federal government at the moment. But they always use it as the extreme and put it in the same category as, Joel Osteen or whatever. And I think of them in very different terms. Because to me, Joel Osteen is a bad example, but the 700 Club, where they talk about,
Right.
Trump needs to do this or that, or, shining city on a hill, whereas the Westboro Baptist Church objects to the fact that people are, quote unquote, worshiping our military or care about the United States government, and then that's sinful idolatry. And so to me, there are churches whose, forgive me for speaking like a Christian for a moment, entire message and purpose and soul has been corrupted by politics and a notion of nationalism. And then there's the Westboro Baptist Church that literally only cares about trying to figure out whatever God wants, and is often not self-serving in that regard. Like if you ask a member, and this has been done on camera, oh no, here he comes. When you ask a member on camera, like, oh, if God sends you to hell, is that good? And their answer is yes, because that's God's will. I find that very different than a person, I find that in a different category, perhaps not a good category, than a person who says, well, no, Trump is a good, godly man because government laws or whatever.
I'm in complete agreement. And I've said before that I have, in a weird way, more respect for someone like Westboro, who is at least biblically accurate, than I do for like the gay church in San Francisco that wants to just ignore, the parts of the Bible that are inconvenient. Right. Now, Westboro ignores the parts of the Bible that are inconvenient too.
Yeah, they haven't stoned any of the children that left the church.
Well, they use a different verse to get them out of that.
Is there?
Yes, because God appoints the leaders. You're supposed to follow the laws of the land, etc. But I have it on good authority from inside Westboro Baptist Church. When you talk about what their primary purpose is, they're not at all, I mean, this is obvious, they're not at all trying to save anybody or anything else. That's not their goal. Their goal is to win lawsuits to keep their church running.
Right.
And it's one of the reasons why not going after them keeps them quieter than going after them.
Right.
Yeah.
What is their opinion of Trump? Just curious.
I don't know. It's not like I have them on speed dial.
Right.
Yeah. You've got a lot of people on
But
speed dial.
as far as I know, God still hates America and God hates Trump. And I think if I had to guess, and I could probably make a couple phone calls and find out, I think that they're not so much pro-Trump. They're not really pro-anybody.
No.
Right.
And I think they would speak out against Trump as well, because it's all corrupt. It's all ungodly. And if I was in part of Westboro Baptist Church, I would be using, Trump as a foil to point out the corruption in the church. Look at you. You are accepting this guy who, the pussy grabber in chief, who's, not at all godly. And I won't go down the 2 Corinthians thing, because actually some biblical scholars will refer to it as 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians. But he's not a biblical scholar.
Right.
He's an idiot.
Right.
But I think that they would go down that road. I haven't heard much from them about Trump.
Really?
And
it's kind of weird.
Maybe their silence is more telling than I would have imagined.
That would be interesting. Actually, I hadn't thought about that at all. I just sort of assumed that he was up there with, our soldiers are dying because we're nice to gay people or whatever.
They might be in favor of a number of his policies.
Are they, though? Like, I mean, you said their primary purpose is to win lawsuits to keep their church running. I've always bumped into people that don't understand what lawsuits will still protest. Trump says, opposed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They were protesting Trump in November,
clock moment,
saying that his sex life puts the entire nation in peril. So everything is an opportunity for them to protest.
Are we all in peril? I thought I was safe because I was a dude. I thought that was one of the benefits that I was.
They've actually released official statements opposing Trump.
Interesting.
It'd be a good get. You get Megan Phelps Roper on here.
Yeah, she's on my list.
And that would be good, because
then
you can. She's amazing to listen to, and Nate Phelps and I have been friends for years, and Nate would also be a good get.
Oh, we gotta talk sometime, because I gotta wish list, but
Yeah, well, I probably know some people on your wish list.
The guest bucket list. Yeah.
Why the hell did you guys have me? You could. Hey, Matt, can you call Nate and see if he wants to remote in? Yes, I will do that. So, Nate, if you're listening, prepare for a call.
yeah. Well, that's awesome. Actually, it would also be awesome to hear that Nate thinks that what we're doing is worthwhile. But their official position is to win lawsuits so that their church is.
Well, that's
still
not their
running.
official.
Well, I mean, they're
unspoken.
The unspoken thing.
Yeah.
Is that just, you mean for the publicity of winning lawsuits, or?
It is publicity and it is
Cash.
funding. When they win cash settlements, that keeps the church going.
That's true.
And look, if there's any doubt about that, do a search sometime and find out how many of the members of the Phelps family, which is pretty much 90% of the Westboro Baptist Church, or 50%, how many of them are lawyers?
Yeah, all. I think.
There's a bunch of lawyers there.
Yeah.
But
Interesting.
Yeah. It gives me a business.
All right.
yeah. What else do we got? We got more news. We got more mail.
Yeah. You want to?
I got a mail.
All right. Let's hit the mail.
You say that all the time.
This one is from Julian. I keep hearing Atheist Beam over the rising nuns, Nones, and this made me happy too. It seemed like this was proof that the U.S. was becoming more secular, but after listening to Fantasyland by Kurt Anderson on audiobook, and now this article on Vox, blah, 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 I'm confused as to what to think about this category anymore. I understand a lot of people qualify the rising category as religiously unaffiliated, but it's interesting to see that a large amount of this group is still preserving a God belief. What do you make of this?
I think not being affiliated with a religion is a good first step, and certainly something that has a tremendous positive impact on our country and the world.
Yeah, there are people who are reluctant to identify with a particular label. And some people, when they get fed up with their church, when they get fed up with their religion, even if they don't actively have a God belief, they're still not going to adopt an atheist label or even identify as seculars. And so it's difficult to get good statistics on this. But what we know is the best statistics we have is that the unaffiliated are increasing.
Yeah.
That does not mean that they are
Atheist
or open, self-identified atheists. Doesn't mean that they're participating with American Atheists or Atheist Community of Austin or anything like that. And I agree with Jamie that is a good first step. But we also know that the secular community at large, those who are willing to publicly identify, is certainly increasing, and there's a prominence to it. We're seeing public figures identify. We're seeing former NFL players, Aaron Foster and others identify, celebrities, and we got to be thankful for some of the celebrities that come over from Great Britain who've been atheists their entire life, and they're like, here I am, America, fuck your God. But it's I don't put so much stock in the statistics. And when people start quoting, we used to be 3% or 1% atheists, and now we're 17% atheist. I'm like, no. Okay. It's the same problem I have that I've talked to Anthony Magnabosco about with regard to crap, I'm not even thinking of it. The manual for creating atheists, the
Peter Boghossian.
The street epistemology.
Street epistemology, yeah.
If you have a conversation with someone and they report at the beginning that they're 99% confident, at the end they're 80% confident, the question is, did you lower their confidence, or did you lower what they're willing to report as their confidence? Was their confidence actually lower all along? And if they're still 80% confident that there's a God, you certainly haven't created an atheist. Similarly, when you start doing surveys with people, there are probably going to be more people who are willing to say, yep, I'm not religious. But how many people are we hearing from who are religious but not or spiritual but not religious? Or
oh God, yes.
Or we got an email this week from somebody who was trying to identify that not religious. They're Christian but not religious, because Christianity isn't a religion; it's a personal relationship.
Oh
with
yeah,
Jesus.
right. Eat me.
It's a religion under any reasonable statistical thing. The fact that you don't want to call it a religion, that's on you.
And this is a bit of a multi-part thing. One is also, I know you've said before that a Christian is whoever says they're one, but how can you be a Christian if you don't believe in the God of the Bible? This really threw me for a loop. Isn't that a bare minimum to be one? This was a weird fact mentioned in the Vox article. I have to go, it's not my job to decree who's a Christian and who's not. So anyone who says they are, I have to believe them.
Yeah. I pretend to read minds on stage. I can't actually read minds.
Yeah.
And so somebody says, hey, I'm a Christian. I take them at their word.
Right. Not my job to...
Because I don't get to decide who is a true Christian. I let them fight it out.
Yeah.
You know, if I got two people standing next to me and both of them say they're Christian and one of them looks at the other one and goes, no, you're not. I'm like, cool, you guys have that conversation. When you figure it the fuck out, come back and talk to me.
Well, what's funny is when two Christians are having that conversation and one turns to you and says, that one's not a Christian because just read the Bible, you know. He's not following the teachings of Jesus. And I go... Look, you can grant me the authority to decree who's a Christian and who's not, but I guarantee you won't like it.
No, I was going to say, isn't there a bit in the Bible, it's like Revelation or something, that says that only God knows who a true Christian is, or you won't know who's saved and who's not until you're...
Yeah, if you look at Christianity as someone who is, you know, actually saved, then only God knows and nobody else does. Because men can't know the hearts of other men or whatever.
Yep.
There's little things in the Bible about how you can supposedly tell. You know, like if a prophet prophesies and it comes true, then clearly he's a man of God. But what if I get it right 4 times and then I miss on the 5th?
Right.
So up until the 5th one, you are now convinced I'm a man of God because I've gotten 4 prophecies right.
Yeah.
Then I miss the 5th one, and now you have to be convinced I'm not. So what does that say about the other 4?
And even us, a group of atheists, just snuck in the qualifier true.
Yeah.
It's
True
hard
Christian.
to avoid.
Yeah. Well, that's. I was going to say, I've seen some of your acts, so you are a man of God then, right? Because you've predicted the beginning, what's happening at the end?
Yeah, and on the back cruise, or before the back cruise, I'm going to do a portion or all of my Magic and Skepticism tour show. Probably do an updated, improved one because in Austin, there's actually stuff at my house that I can't take on the road with me. So
nice.
I'll rework it a bit, but it's a way to teach skepticism using magic. But it includes some mind reading and predictions, and I mostly get it right. So maybe I'm mostly a man of God.
Yeah. I was going to say, so do you use Jesus, or is it Thor, or...
I go for the abstract. I let the universe tell me what it wants me to say. I put myself out into the universe, and then the universe puts itself back into me.
Loki, right here.
I was going to say, usually it sounds like you should light some scented candles before that happens.
There's one last bit on this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What do we got?
Since Matt is on the podcast this week, I have a small question for him.
Oh, boy.
What books do you recommend reading to teach yourself philosophy? Matt mentions from time to time he's self-taught.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
remember
necessarily
thinking
know that it's wise to recommend that you be self-taught.
I remember thinking that question, like, actually, when I first bumped into Atheist Experience videos and started volunteering. I was like, well, did he make himself a curriculum I can borrow? Like, that's not going to be the beginning and the end of my philosophical learning, but...
I'm doing the best I can, producing, the atheist debate videos and stuff like that to try to teach people what I've learned and how, and as I continue to learn. But if you want to get started in philosophy and you're not actually going to go take a course, you don't even have to buy a book. If you have internet access, you can read the entire works of David Hume, and it's probably like davidhume.org, but if you Google, you'll find it. And then you read his On Human Understanding and a number of other things that will give you at least what I think is the foundation, the best foundation of understanding epistemology. I kid you not, if you start out at Wikipedia and then follow the links at the bottom of these articles about philosophical subjects, you will find yourself at the Stanford Philosophy Library online. And then you will read that, and you will read more, and then you'll get confused, and then you'll think you understand stuff, and then you'll
be wrong.
You will have the freshman understanding, and then later on you'll be like, oh wait, I was so childish when I understood that before. That's what philosophy is, and it's not a waste of time in the sense that it's a learning process, and it undergirds what we understand about science and other disciplines, because all of this gets to how we process the world.
Right.
However, there are aspects of philosophy that I will absolutely acknowledge are about as time-wasty as you could possibly find.
Right, yeah.
And so it might be better to pick a specific subject, like just pick epistemology, and then start at Wikipedia, and don't stop there, because anybody can edit that shit. And follow the actual links to where you're, reading people's actual books on the subject, and find out if it's something you're actually interested in. But that's it.
Yeah. All right. That's it for that mail. So,
I will
here
say,
about another news story.
In defense of Wikipedia, they do a very good job of making sure that there's good stuff up there.
And it reminds me, there's another question that comes in, not just specifically about philosophy, but people will be like, which Bible version should I get?
Oh.
It doesn't matter.
If I want to, or what book should I read when I'm trying to evaluate the Bible and stuff like this? Actually, I think there's a video up on Atheist Debates with my answer to this, which is it doesn't matter, because whichever one you pick is going to be the wrong one for somebody that you're having a conversation with.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, you don't have to know any of this. If they're the ones that believe this, they may not have the same interpretation from the exact same book that the person in the pew sitting next to them has. So it is their job to explain what they believe and why, and it's your job to ask questions, and it's their job to make sure that it's clear to you. If they start telling you, oh, well, you can't understand this until you go off and read the works of so-and-so and so-and-so, dump them. Because that is, if that's what it takes, then they're not a true Christian. We're back to that. Because the Holy Spirit will reveal everything you need to know, and they should be able to do it through them. You don't have to study all this stuff. You can if you're actually interested in it. But what I find is a lot of people just want to be better at having the conversations.
Yeah.
And they're like, what books can I read so that I can do this the way you guys do?
Give me ammo.
Yeah. And I'm like, don't. Just have the conversations and ask lots of questions. Yeah. And maybe keep a diary, keep notes. I wish I had kept notes on some of the conversations I had, because our memories are awful.
Yeah.
Is Usenet still a thing? That's where I broke. I broke my teeth on. I argued on alt atheism for years and years
with your 800 baud modem and
yes,
your rotary dial phone.
Got your IRC chat going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you have another letter for us, or did we want to move to
a story now?
A story now. Well,
once upon a time, Cardinal Theodore McCarrick resigned amid sex scandal abuse, which is
water is wet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, water is wet, but this water is floating on top of, whatever. Wow. My knowledge of how quantum physics works just went way out the window. No, it's like a super
the water's
unbelievably
on the
cold
foam.
Superconductor. No, they just float metal on that. Whatever. Because
good job.
Usually nailed it. All right. Because usually they don't resign.
Yeah, they get away with it.
Well, usually they get away with it.
They're posted somewhere else.
They get moved to the Vatican, right? Like, I forget which person it was that previously had to leave the United States because of this, was in the College of Cardinals and voted for the current Pope in their Pope voting election. But this is my favorite aspect of what happens to all of the people that the public knows are sex abuse, which is not that they get a sentence from a court, but they are ordered by the Pope to, quote, a life of prayer and penitence, end quote. And that is their punishment for all of the rape. But it's, I think, the first cardinal in history to step down from the College of Cardinals because of sexual abuse allegations. So he doesn't get to vote on the next pope or do any of the other College of Cardinal things. I don't know. I didn't get all the way through the Catholic Catechism, but
doesn't get to engage in their reindeer games. Yeah.
No reindeer games for him. But it's interesting because the Pope gets way too much credit for being the most decent Pope, I think, probably that's ever been. But that's not really that high a bar.
True.
As far
Actually, one of last month's Atheist Debates videos is about whether or not we have a newer, kinder Pope.
Ah, okay. Well, Cross promotion.
And what was your conclusion?
We do, and yet
We don't have a nicer church, though.
yeah, it was about the little kid who went up and cried to the Pope about how he was worried his dad was in hell, and the Pope comforted him by suggesting that his dad must have been a good man and raised good kids, and therefore, since God is like a father, God wouldn't separate this man. So the Pope basically just like rewrote doctrine on the fly, to make this kid feel better. And what I took away from it, which is in the video, which you know I don't have to watch because I'll just tell you, is holy crap, the only reason that kid was crying in the first place is because your church taught him that his dad is burning in hell.
Yeah.
So you don't get kudos from me for slapping a Band-Aid on the individual that you sliced open.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it's better than letting him bleed out, but, you know.
Yeah. I would say I actually give some credit to the individual, but not the institution, in that, well, I don't know. It's difficult for me to think of a person that wouldn't have found something to say in that instance. Like, I don't know what Pope Dracula, whatever our previous pope was.
Ratzinger.
Ratzinger would have said. But, yeah, I don't know.
It would be interesting to find out what he would have said in a situation like that. The thing is, you also have to remember, the Pope was, I didn't even mention this in the video, the Pope's on camera.
That's true.
And there's a little kid. What kind of ghoul would you have to be
Oh, I know.
to on camera say, I'm sorry, I know you loved your dad, but God thinks he's a piece of shit.
And he's burning right now.
Nobody's going to do that. And of course, every time the Pope steps out beyond doctrine, the cardinals are like, well, let me tell you what the Pope really meant, you know.
Yeah.
And
Let's walk this back a little.
let's take this back. 'Cause
Walk with me.
he didn't really mean that atheists are going to be in heaven, which he has alluded to on more than
alluded
one occasion.
Yeah.
And every time they have to walk that shit back.
I can say, no, they have, well, they're atheists, but if they accept Christ, then they can go to, yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I accepted Christ when I was 5, and there are Protestant preachers who still think I'm going to go to heaven.
Yeah, because they're saved.
Once saved, always saved, despite the fact that I don't believe, despite the fact that their God is evidently allowing me to work in direct opposition to everything that they believe.
Yeah.
He thinks, more than one of them, but one in particular, I love you, Will, you're awesome, but he thinks he's going to see me in heaven. And I'm like, I hope not.
And even if you do, it won't be me.
Yeah, and it won't be because of anything I did. I mean, if that's the way, what's that say about the way your God works? Hey, these non-believers that I'm desperately trying to save because I'm afraid they're going to go to hell. Some of them, as Will, he's not going to get to, so they're going to go to hell. And then I'm going to be up there in heaven with Will, and we're going to say, what about all those people that were good people that you just didn't reach? Wait, when I was 5, I walked down an aisle and accepted Jesus into my heart, and you think that magically puts me in this category, where, Anne Frank is burning in hell right alongside, well, not Hitler, because he was a Catholic.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, but Anne Frank was Jewish, so hell.
Yep.
What's interesting is that at one point the Mormons baptized her posthumously, which they do, which was interesting because I understandably, I suppose, if you are familiar with the way these things go in religious organizations, there was a huge objection from the Jewish communities of Israel, all of this, and that prompted Bill Maher to unbaptize Mitt Romney's dad into atheism or whatever with a wizard hat.
I loved that as satire because we got an email from someone who was seriously concerned. They're like, I'm an atheist. I'm an ex-Mormon. I'm a foreman. And I don't want them baptizing me after I'm dead. And I'm like, get over it.
Yeah. It's not going to affect you.
You're dead. It has no bearing on you. Every second of your life spent worrying about whether or not somebody's going to posthumously baptize you is a second that you could have been doing something else, something real.
Record a video of burning some of the magic underwear and post it online. They will never want you in any
or
of the
just
heavens.
record a video saying, I hope you all baptize me posthumously.
Yeah.
As the reverse
Reverse
psychology. Yeah, that's
It
true.
will not affect me one bit because I'll be fucking dead.
Yeah. That's interesting, actually, is that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints doesn't support our president and didn't vote for him because they
love Mitt Romney.
Well, because they love Mitt Romney, but also because like he's a braggart and all of these things that are just totally unacceptable to them. So even though, policy-wise,
he drinks things that they don't want to drink.
Well, he doesn't. He's a teetotaler, I think. Or were you talking about something?
Caffeine.
Oh yeah, no, he has Coca-Cola all the time.
Yeah, but he also eats his steak well done with ketchup. So I'm pretty sure that's one of the many signs of the Antichrist.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Does he actually?
Yeah. Oh my gosh! You didn't hear the news stories? It was a big deal.
No, I just thought he ate Big Macs every day, which I'd also heard. But,
Probably.
Yeah. That wow. Okay. No wonder Trump's steaks failed. If he's making them to be tasted with ketchup, whatever. Apparently, I miss all of the best Trump news stories. But yeah. Certainly,
We don't need no Trump for this show.
No, we don't. But the thing I was going to ask about the Catholic Church, because despite going to Catholic school for 4 years and having 7 semesters learn about the Catholic Church specifically, I don't actually know what the process is of changing doctrine there. And my understanding is presumably you should just be able to pope whatever doctrine you want into existence, but it involves getting all the other cardinals and whatever.
It's weirdness, and I'm no expert. And actually, when I talked about the Pope, I pointed out that if this Pope has done anything, it is to put the final nail in the coffin of the notion of papal infallibility, because they constantly have to correct him. Yeah. And then some Catholics and former Catholics wrote me, and they're like, papal infallibility really wasn't the thing everybody thought it was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, once upon a time, if the Pope said it, that's the way it was.
Yeah.
Well, there's a way that the Pope makes the infallibleness official, which is that if he's sitting in a specific chair in a specific cathedral and he propagates doctrine from there, then it can never be changed or undone.
He has to be wearing this particular hat on Thursday afternoon.
Really. Yeah. No, there's things like that. Like when they first elect the Pope, all of the cardinals come out, and the one that they've elected Pope wears red shoes, and all the other ones wear brown shoes, and that's how you know. It's like, it's...
Wow.
Yeah. It's levels.
I never knew that.
On levels. I think they still have an official and revamped.
I'm pretty sure that if you...
They have secret handshake.
Department of Exorcisms is what I was going to say, but yeah.
I've seen footage of, inside the Vatican, and here's the Pope, and here's how they live. I think if your religious organization has somebody that reminds me of Liberace, you have to have him play the piano at least once during Mass. I mean, it's with a candelabra and everything.
Well, that's true.
All right, what do we got next?
We got another letter or mail.
Is there a mail for us? Is there?
Kinda. Let's see. This one's from Matt. My name is Matt from Adelaide, South Australia, and recently saw this story in our local news. Recently, Australia had a royal commission, like a congressional hearing, into child abuse for children in state care. The Royal Commission made many legislative recommendations to attempt to curb the abuse many children suffered in the past, including my own mother, who was sexually assaulted as a child. Due to the recommendations of the Royal Commission, the South Australian government has from October 1st, South Australia will become the first state where priests will be legally obliged to report any confessions of child sex abuse.
Wow.
The report recommends there be no exception, excuse, protection, or privilege from the offense granted to clergy for failing to report information disclosed in connection with a religious confession. It will be no surprise to you all, the Catholic Church played a prominent part of the investigation of the Royal Commission. Recently, also the Archbishop of Adelaide, Greg O'Kelly, made a public statement that the Church would refuse to adhere to any laws that would break the seal of confession.
I can completely understand that what their objection is. So you have HIPAA laws that protect your medical information and make sure your doctor can't talk to anybody, and they exist for a good reason. I've never been convinced that the veil of confession exists for anything remotely like a good reason.
Right.
Yeah.
I've heard people argue that if somebody comes in and, like, for example, they confess to a crime, that what most priests will do is encourage them to turn themselves in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that that's... How can you possibly ever come up with that statistic if confessions are private?
Yeah.
At most, you're going to have priests say, this is what I do if this happens. How do you know?
Yeah.
Right. How do you know what they actually do?
Maybe, I don't like to go down the road that, like, the Catholic Church is quite as nefarious as some other cults. But if I was starting a religion with confession or with e-meters, I might use the information that I got from my parishioners to actually control their lives even more so that I could get them to jump up on couches and profess their love for Scientology and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. So
It's okay to be gay, Tom. Just tell us. It's great.
I'm out of the closet.
Really, though. Yeah. There's that episode of South Park.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
Captain
Although, in a way, I don't, because I don't like the goading of celebrities to come out.
Yeah.
That was always a problem. I mean, I know some people who are still closeted and are going to remain so, mostly not because they're not active and working towards it, but because it's nobody's business. Yeah. And we do treat celebrities differently. And I really wish we wouldn't. I wish we'd stop getting our medical advice from celebrities, including celebrity doctors.
Yeah.
But
Or activists.
Oh, good question.
Yeah, I think I've got another story.
Okay.
If you're done with that one.
Go for it.
Let's see. It's from the Christian Post, but it's, Lee Strobel talking about how he needs the greater need for evangelism. And, Strobel, once an atheist journalist intent on disproving God, who later found Christ, which is
not accurate.
Yeah. I'm an evangelist at the depth of my heart, and I see evangelism not just as something that people gifted in evangelism do, but as something we're all called upon to do. We're all called upon to share our faith. And this, I think I'm kind of piggybacking on something I brought up at the end of the show 2 weeks ago, which was Chuck Norris calling for, all of the troops in the culture war to quit being nice, which was news to me that there were troops in the culture war being nice, but or whatever.
It's all about Christian oppression. We have somehow, our tiny little squad here has somehow managed to oppress 70% of the population of the United States.
Somehow.
We are unbelievably efficient.
We didn't even have to have people vote to oppress them. We just decided to do it and did it.
That's right. With no funding. It's amazing.
Yes.
We don't even have the same tax-exempt privileges they have, and yet we are oppressing them.
No, we have the advantage that our mere presence or existence is oppression to them. So, boom. But what I will say is, I don't know how concerned I should be, or anyone should be, about the supposed culture war. I mean, movies and music seem to be things that Christian cinema is horrendous and a joke. But and is that a different opinion or? No, okay, sorry. You look like you were reacting to that. It's terrible.
I'm agreeing.
Yeah. Christian rock is interesting, I suppose, but I don't know. It's interesting because they're fighting for things in the schools. Do you guys have a particular opinion about how worried those of us that don't want a Christian nation full of Jesus fighters attacking?
I'm worried about some of the things. Obviously, the things we've already talked about, the religious liberty task force type stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if the task force never does anything, even if this is just red meat for their base, and posturing, it's reinforcing those ideas. Yeah. Now, what I will say, I met Lee, and he doesn't debate. Yeah. So Lee and I are never going to have a debate. He is what he says he is. He's an evangelist. And that means that he's running around trying to teach people how to do the thing that he can't and won't do, which is debate others.
Right.
He's trying to give them all the tools that he refuses to use. Now, he will review it and point it out as if this is just witnessing, like, hey, I stumbled across something.
Yeah.
But those are debates. If you run across somebody on an airplane and you're sitting next to them and you're talking about Jesus and they say, oh, I'm an atheist, and then you have a conversation with them, that's not functionally different from what I do. The thing is, I think it speaks to somebody's concern about their expertise in an area. Now, he'll be the first one to tell you that one of the reasons he doesn't debate is because he doesn't think he's good at it. And, of course, it doesn't just happen that you get good at it. You have to work.
Yeah.
But when he talks about the sides in the culture war, I remember years ago people panicking about the words in Onward Christian Soldiers, as if there was, a broad militia movement. And there really wasn't. I mean, it was, my grandma would sit around singing Onward Christian Soldiers. She's not going to come, come in and take your bong and, whatever else you've got that Jesus wouldn't like. We talked earlier about, the rise of the nuns and the non-religious. That is what kind of offsets this conversation for me. It's what makes me confident that we're going to keep winning. But these conversations about the culture war, about, the Christian oppression, this is what makes me realize that it's not a straight upward trend. We're going to have setbacks and fights all the way. I have job security, I guess.
Right. Well, here's the thing: is the two sides of the culture war, if we're going to reduce it to that simplistic a thing, right? Is the Christian side a gigantic bait and switch? I mean, because they don't like the culture. They want to change it to something else, but they're trying to appeal to people who like the culture the way it is. I mean, Christian rock, what the hell is that? I mean, Christians were the first to speak out against it, call it the devil's music and all this stuff, but now they're using it because it's useful.
Many of them were opposed to Christian rock when I was a kid.
Yeah.
This is weird. We shouldn't be doing this. It's something, they had notions about, it's the rhythm that makes you want to do this stuff, and it's not about praise. And then there was some good Christian rock. Early Petra stuff is awesome.
But it's like
there is kind of a bait and switch.
Weird bait and switch.
But the other thing is, when you look at this, you talked about, can we just reduce it to two sides in this culture war? We already talked about a third side, and that is those people who are not religiously affiliated.
Right.
And so the question is, when push comes to shove, do those who aren't religiously affiliated side with the secularists or the dominionists?
Right.
And the thing is, it depends. It depends on the issue. It depends on what's going on at the time. For some things like, for example, abortion rights, I think a good chunk of those are just going to de facto side with the dominionists, with the literalists, the fundamentalists. I think on some issues more like marriage equality, I think the non-religious are more likely to side with the secularists. Certainly when it comes to legalizing weed and stuff like that, they're going to side. That's the whole reason they're not going to church anyway, because they took a bong hit and discovered a different type of God. But
right.
So I go back and forth, because there are certainly areas where this middle ground group that's like, oh, I'm spiritual but not religious. Okay, how not religious are you?
Right.
Because you're not religious enough for me yet. And you're not going to be accepted by the other side either. So let's figure out exactly how you're going to be, how are you voting? How are you lobbying? Who are you donating money to?
Does it matter whether they believe in a God, even if it's...
Not if they're Jewish. Reformed Judaism doesn't require any belief in a God.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was interesting because I don't have the story in front of me. At one point, I heard that they were trying to have Jewish, I think congregation is probably the wrong word, but that's what the story was reporting it as, Jewish congregations that explicitly said, yeah, we don't believe that a God exists, but they weren't receiving, acknowledgement from other temples and things.
Well, there's a humanistic Jewish movement. I actually spoke at one of the first humanistic Jewish synagogues in the United States last year or the year before. And I've heard 50% of Jews in Israel are secular.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, obviously the Judaism gets divided up into categories. And so Reformed Judaism doesn't require a belief in a God. It's more cultural and about the observation.
Traditionalist.
except that some of the things that they do and go in and observe are so closely tied. Like, I remember Russell's sister Karen, I remember talking to her about it once because she would go to temple and, rise up on her feet when they say the name of God and all that stuff, even though she didn't believe. This was something that was very difficult for me to understand. Here you are, an atheist, on an atheist TV show, and you're appreciating the aspects of your culture which are rooted in the opposite of what your view is.
Right.
And it was kind of one of my first introductions to the cultural aspect of it, to where I realized someone could be culturally Christian. And then in debates, people would accuse me, when we were having discussions about morality, you only hold these views because you were raised Christian or because you're still culturally Christian.
Grief, right.
And I'm like, no, I actually thought about it a bit and formulated some sort of model. Yeah. But I'm not in a panic. Yeah. But I do think we saw at the end of the 19th century, the free thought movement got complacent.
Yeah.
And got to the point where, religion and politics aren't civil dinner conversation, and let's let the peons have their religion while the rest of all of us enlightened individuals benefit from the scientific world, and someday they will catch up. And that backfired spectacularly.
Nope.
Yeah.
And so there's always the possibility that we could lose ground, and that's why I keep telling people, you're talking about how there's not many people going to conventions anymore. Okay, if that's the case, then we need to figure out what people need to stay motivated and active, to work towards separation of religion and government, to work towards guaranteeing civil liberties for people and that they're not going to be marginalized by religious individuals. Whatever it takes to make those steps. And maybe it's not a convention. Maybe it's, hey, we're going to meet on the steps of the Capitol with, signs. Maybe it's we're going to start a website that exposes every one of these work with Anonymous and get them to expose the Vatican secrets on how many pederast priests are being shuffled around from place to place. But we've done that. The thing that disheartens me, and not to get political, but we talked before about Trump would say things that I would think my evangelical mother would immediately go, that is not Christian at all. And she probably does. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't seem to faze her with respect to voting and supporting. I worry that I see the same thing happening because
surreal.
What was that movie that came out a year or so ago about the Boston newspaper's investigation of the Catholic Church?
Spotlight,
mm-hmm.
Right.
That was a huge movie everybody saw. But we've known about these scandals for ages, and yet people still like, not my church, or that's not why I'm donating, or the church does so much good that, yes, there's problems we have to solve. There's something there that these people need, and it's not being met in other ways. It's certainly not going to be met for most people by just coming down to the skeptics in the pub thing, which is why I support, Oasis and Sunday Assembly and those things. But maybe we need more. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, maybe the thing we need is something that nobody can provide without a false foundation. People are so desperate for hope that you can't provide in the real world that they're willing to accept the false hope from religious proclamations.
That last one I disagree with.
Cool.
Yeah. And
I'd like that to be wrong. Yes.
No. So I think it's worth saying that it's not enough to create a separate place that people can get what they're getting out of a church, whether it's the community, the support. They need the kinds of people that will help them financially when they're hard on their luck. They need all of this, or they need a greater purpose in life. I don't think that it's enough just to create those communities, because that's not going to deconvert someone, right? I think that it takes speaking to them about God, but ultimately I don't think that there is anyone who can't function without something that's necessarily a false belief or something that's necessarily a belief in the divine, because...
No, I'm in agreement.
Okay.
Go ahead, because...
Well, because I don't think that those qualifiers as far as beliefs necessarily affect the way that our brains deal with those kinds of beliefs.
I was talking about something slightly different because I've said before that I don't think there's any real benefit that religions provide that can't be provided through secular means.
And I agree.
Some of it has to do with retraining people because religions have poisoned the way we view death. If we teach people to view death in a different way, then that eases the anxiety surrounding it. There is one problem, though, that apart from just getting someone to the point where they no longer worry about it because I'm not quite sure, the nihilistic problem. The notion that I'm going to live for some period of time and then it's all going to be over, and that's very frustrating. And so if the secular view is, yes, that's frustrating, but it doesn't have to be, and the only way it doesn't have to be is for you to realize, hey, I should focus on this life and live the best life I can and enjoy the time because that's where the value is. There are people who, for whatever reason, that may never be satisfying, even if they can process it in an
They won't respond to that.
I think there are many, many people that you can reach that way, and I would hope that everybody could be reached in some way. But as it stands right now, I hear more frustration from atheists who have a nihilistic view of the world, that none of this matters, and blah, blah, blah. And there's no easy answer for that. And the best answers to some people sound like, get over it.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't want to live in a universe that doesn't care about me. Well, it doesn't care about you, so get over it. That's not helpful.
No.
Instead, pointing out that their need for the universe to care about them is a poison that was put into them from this grand lie. That is, I think, the best way to get them to recognize that they have a false need for something that was imbued into them by religion, specifically so that religion could try and solve it. Yeah, we're going to poison you and offer you the antidote type thing.
I agree. I also,
Right.
I feel like,
Interesting.
I feel like in a way, it may not require that poisoning from religion to come to some idea of, well, what does this world mean? It's not enough for me, right? Because I think
Religion exploits it.
Well, religion exploits it. Religion exploits a lot of things. But I feel like that's something that even people that do believe in a God, ostensibly or to some degree, can, the fluffy, wishy-washy, casual Christians can experience. And then sometimes that means that they go to their church and decide that they're a firebrand Christian on fire for Jesus or whatever. And I think that that's part of why we need like a real humanist movement and the kinds of organizations like Oasis, although there's some scandal around stuff with their founder recently, but
the one in Houston, but not Oasis globally.
Oh, okay. The Houston founder or the
Houston ex-preacher who was running Oasis there.
Oh, okay. With the local chapter of Oasis in Austin is changing its name and unaffiliating and stuff.
Oh,
anyway,
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, but like things like that and Sunday Assembly and just groups of humans being human with each other for the sake of being human is sufficient, I think. But it's also desperately needed in general because there are people with or without religion that would need to find that.
Is the narrative structure itself of religion, the stories in the Bible, is that an aspect too that people somehow need?
No, I think it's
is
a good way of fulfilling that.
Is it like Star Wars fandom?
It is like that.
It is.
Yeah.
So the stories,
they need that story,
but it's not the story. It's the stories about the stories. It is literally the interpretive sermons that people give on the stories.
The fanfic.
These stories that exist in the Bible, they're little peeks into who we are and who we were as human beings. And so someone who's really good at delivering sermons and engaging in a little exegesis can grab the aspects of those stories that they know will resonate with people and tell a different story around that story. And now you feel like a part of this. It is the skill of public speaking to draw in the crowd and to connect with people. It's why I talk about debate being at least partially theater. You have to make that kind of connection. And some people are better at it than others. Some of the best mentalists on the planet, because I do a lot of mentalist magic as well, it's not that they're necessarily more intuitive in any kind of supernatural sense. They are trained in their ability to recognize things about people. We work on observations. If I'm getting somebody up on stage, one of the things that I do that nobody else is going to care about is I look to see if the guy coming up on stage has a wristwatch and which hand it's on. Because right-handed people tend to wear the wristwatch on the left, and left-handed people tend to wear it on the right. And then I don't have to ask them if they're left or right-handed. Or I could use that as a revelation for the people who don't know that. You pick up on little things.
Right.
But we do this all the time. When we walk around, this is actually a piece out of the magic and skepticism thing. If I'm walking down the hallway at the shopping mall, I don't have to tell people coming towards me whether I'm going left or right. We read body language. But we're so good at it that we read body language even when we can't see bodies. How many times you've been sitting in a car, and the car in front of you has got tinted windows, you can't see the person at all, and yet you know that guy's going to cut you off, and you're right. And it's not just confirmation bias.
Yeah.
It's because the body language extends to the way they're driving. And once you drive for a while, you begin to see patterns in how people drive. You're not very good at understanding how you reach these conclusions, but you're good at reaching them.
Well, you're a pattern recognizing machine.
That's
so
us.
yeah.
Well, I think touching on that, it's important through skepticism to recognize which patterns are that are found are actually worthwhile. And then I think that's true. Humans are very good at doing that. And I think you certainly know more about that with mentalism than I do. But there's something to be said about people recognize or cling on to patterns that aren't true, playing into like racism and other crap. But
also things, that aren't even necessarily negative, things about our hopes. There's a reason people play the lottery.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because there's some fantasy overdrive, and they see lottery winners, and they're bad at math.
Yes.
I'm bad enough.
I could be one.
I'm bad enough at math that when it gets up over 400 million, I can go, the expected return on investment for my dollar just went through the roof, even though I'm not going to win.
Right.
Like vanishingly small likelihood that I'm going to win.
There's an amount where it's the Mega Millions becomes large enough that a dollar bet becomes a logical bet mathematically.
Yeah.
Just based on your odds. It's something.
That's
really
what I was talking about with the return. Expected return on investment.
Is it 400 million?
I don't know exactly
My
what
dad
it is.
says the number all the time.
I just make up whatever number sounds convenient
That's
when I
funny.
want to buy a ticket.
Yeah. Whatever number it's convenient when you bet. I will say, circling back to your idea about narrative, I don't think that is necessarily what it provides, but narratives do have a really powerful place in the human mind and human history. And that's one of the things that I see motivating the resurgence of white supremacy and white nationalism, is this idea of you have this connection to this people, and here's this story, and everything that's ever been created is created by you and your people, and it's fantastic, and you should own this because it's yours, because here's this story that's significant. And it's in the same way that, this country is God's country, and God wants you to do this, and you're all part of this, and here's this, you're God's people, and you're going to save the country, etc. You can transmute that to race or religion or,
Mandatory DNA testing for everyone. Here's your 23andMe results. You are not nearly as white as you think you are.
I don't know.
I am shockingly white, but as is Beth. Beth and I both got our results back, and we're really fucking white. And yet, curiously, neither of us are remotely white supremacists. Matter of fact,
That's weird.
Not all that impressed with white folks here lately.
Yeah.
Or ever.
Well, I don't know. I'm Richard Spencer is.
But we're so imperialist. Who would hate us?
Is mostly not making a big name for himself anymore, so I shouldn't bring him up, but I will anyway. The times I've looked at things that he's said or watched one of his speeches or whatever, which always end in the fascist salute, which is frightening. It's really frustrating because he has a poorer understanding of history than I do, and I'm not a scholar, and his ability to spin narrative. Well, whatever. But before I rant about people who know almost nothing and have no skills or whatever. I think we're about to finish up here because we're at time.
Yep.
Did I cut you off in the middle of a thought?
No, absolutely not. And before you guys wrap it up, thanks for having me back on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man,
Thanks
that
for
was
coming back.
awesome.
Blast for the past, yeah. Eric and I jumped at the opportunity to have Ray Blevins on our show when we could. Original host. Were you started this podcast?
No.
No? You started
Okay.
this podcast.
No.
Who started
this podcast? Was
Jeff D started the
Jeff D
nonprofits.
and
Yeah.
was it Russell?
Yeah,
also?
several
Yeah.
years before I was even involved with the ACA.
Ah.
And they did it in particular as a side project that wasn't ACA sponsored so that they could talk about politics on this show.
Well, damn. I missed out.
But they got some.
Yeah.
But we rolled it back in.
Yeah.
I didn't start shit. I've hosted the Atheist Experience for 14 years or something like that, but
Yeah.
it was around for like 7 years before that. I didn't start the group. I didn't start the programs. I started Iron Chariots, which is currently down. Please stop emailing to let me know. I've got somebody who's working on mirroring ironchariots.org
Right.
somewhere else, and we'll try to get that fixed. I'm aware. I started it. I transferred the ownership to Russell for a while, and since then it's lapsed, and I've been just crazy busy. But yes, so those of you who've noticed, thanks for letting us know. I'll work on it when I can.
Cool.
All right. Well,
Should I take us out?
take us out.
All right. Well, that was our show, for what it's worth, and we hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back in 2 weeks on the 15th of August, and maybe I should just have made some jokes about the heat.